Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Edmonton Global stage here at the Canadian Hydrogen Convention. My name is Avash Timsina with Edmonton Global. For the next 30 minutes, we will be talking about manufacturing opportunities for hydrogen. We have a lineup of an amazing panelists with us today. André, Bob, James. Why don't we start by introducing ourselves? André, why don't you go first?
Thank you so much, Avash. So my name is André McDonald. I'm a professor in the Department of Mechanical Engineering at University of Alberta and the immediate former Associate Vice President for Strategic Research Initiatives and Performance.
Bob?
So I'm Bob Blattler, CEO of Cariboo Clean Fuels. We're a developer of hydrogen-related infrastructure, so looking for the opportunities to establish the hydrogen supply, but bring the market opportunities along with it, right across the full value chain. So not just mobility purpose, but also industrial applications as well.
I'm James Kennedy with Hycamite out of Kokkola, Finland. That was my attempt at a Finnish accent. I'm based in Toronto. I know the chairman of Hycamite through years ago in similar businesses we were running in the cogeneration space. And Hycamite pioneered a way to make hydrogen and graphitic carbon and other carbon structures from natural gas through a process called methane pyrolysis or methane splitting. Hycamite is just in the process of commissioning an industrial scale plant that'll produce 2,000 tons a year of hydrogen, 6,000 tons a year of carbon. And with that carbon, the facility is called a customer sample facility. So they will be shipping carbon to customers across the world, and that will in turn be in the hopes of generating business and building plants. So we will be sending carbon, samples to Innotech, for example, and other institutions and organizations in Alberta as a way to start jump-starting the production of hydrogen and carbon here in Alberta.
Perfect. Thank you for your introductions. We are here in the Edmonton region. We are at the Canadian Hydrogen Convention talking about manufacturing. So let's talk about why Edmonton. So let's jump into my first question is, what makes the Edmonton region uniquely positioned to support hydrogen-related manufacturing on a global scale?
Guess I'll go first and just kick it off. So, the first thing that I'll probably say is that in Edmonton, in particular, a lot of us know that in this region, we have a lot of capacity with regards to, industrial work that we do here. When we think about the skill sets that we have here, the capacity for doing work from an advanced manufacturing perspective, we're really very strategically positioned to advance into hydrogen technology. So what do I mean by that? So when you think about the Edmonton region and some of the work that we do in areas such as welding, laser cladding, the capacity that's here at Innotech Alberta, in the Alberta heartland, for example, the skills that are here already, we can actually translate a lot of that directly into supporting the hydrogen economy. One example that I'd like to give is, companies like Acuren here that do non-destructive testing, for example, they are looking at codes based on, ASTM B series codes that are actually going to be able to support the hydrogen economy. But where's that happening? Right here in Alberta, right? So that's really coming from many years of doing pressure vessel testing work, getting ready to support the hydrogen economy from the perspective of transport, and then of course from storage. Now, when you look at that from a manufacturing perspective and you take all of those rich, ripe skills, plus the infrastructure capacity that we have here in Edmonton, Sturgeon County, the heartland, and really position that for hydrogen, now you're seeing that we're moving gradually away from oil and gas, but still having the skill set to support both industries in tandem. That makes us uniquely positioned as a region to really support the hydrogen economy and the transition going forward. And of course, the industries that will really rely on that. My colleagues will tell you, if there aren't workers and capacity here, it's unlikely that industries will come to do business here. So that really sets us apart in Canada and maybe even globally.
Perfect. Bob, you're also the chair of Hydrogen BC, and James, you're here all the way from Toronto representing a Finnish company, Hycamite. So I would really love to hear your perspective as well. Bob?
Yeah, so although I'm in BC, I spent my entire career, or up till the time I created Cariboo, in the energy industry here in Alberta. So there It's an established industry with manufacturing that has supported it for decades. And I don't look at it as a divergence from fossil fuel industry, but a complementary opportunity that the hydrogen economy does represent. And we're well positioned with the business environments that we have established over those years that can support and quickly tool, if tooling is required, to support the advancement of the hydrogen economy.
Well, it's interesting. Again, I'm from Ontario, and so I was familiar with the Sarnia-Lambton Economic Hub and some other Nano Ontario, various associations built around the auto industry. So when I first came out to Edmonton 3 years ago to attend the first Canadian Hydrogen Convention in 2022, I mean, outside of the excitement of coming out of COVID and being able to come to a real conference and see real people, I was astounded at how many kind of support groups, whether it was Innovate Alberta, Innotech, and André, as you mentioned, Innotech. I was, every year I do a site tour, and one year, I think last year or 2 years ago, we went to some Innotech facilities, which was particularly interesting for me coming from the methane pyrolysis space and seeing what the opportunities would be on the carbon side, because that's where we tend to focus on from the advanced manufacturing sector.
We're talking about manufacturing, so let's talk a little bit more about advanced manufacturing. So, André, I know you just got back from Hanover a couple weeks ago. You probably saw a lot of intersection between manufacturing, advanced manufacturing, and energy. So this question is for André, but it's open for you all. So why is the convergence of hydrogen and advanced manufacturing spaces so critical for the success of both the industries?
Yeah, great question again, Avash. So, the position that I will take on this is really one of diversification of opportunities, right? So, advanced manufacturing in particular in the province, when I look at it through the lens of Edmonton and Alberta, have really developed a lot of capacity when it comes to heavy industry work. So we've been able to support the oil and gas industry very well, but there's been trends to start to pivot to, say, aerospace and defense and other areas. Now, what we saw in Hanover was a lot of conversations around pivoting to not only hydrogen, but also to artificial intelligence again, as well, right? Using things like digital twins to be able to a priori predict the behavior and performance of manufacturing plants in different scenarios that we haven't really conceptualized yet or used yet, right? Hydrogen is actually one of those. So that's actually going to open up doors for us, so for both of the industries, actually. So when you look at some of the work that we've done in manufacturing around trying to develop new materials, high entropy alloys, high entropy ceramics, for example, that can resist things like hydrogen embrittlement, and really tailoring all of that from oil and gas to transition into hydrogen, that's actually going to open up opportunities for us to diversify this local economy by bringing in hydrogen into the conversation, but at the same time opening doors up for manufacturing to be a bit more diversified. What that's actually going to do for both of the industries is open up secondary, auxiliary, or peripheral industries as well. So take, for example, we're working in hydrogen, but we want to expand out with some of the manufacturing technologies into areas like sustainable aviation fuel to support defense, aerospace, for example. That can actually be done here, but we will be pivoting and building from what we've done in manufacturing, incorporating it into hydrogen, and then looking at expanding into other areas for business opportunities. From a scientific and a research perspective, which is where I come from, I do appreciate the work that Alberta Innovates, Innotech Alberta, CFR, and others have done. So much so that they've created a new Alberta Advanced Manufacturing International Hub that I'm currently the co-director of, to really bring together ideas around advanced manufacturing processes, integration of AI, as well as materials, and then using that to support the hydrogen economy. What that's going to do for us is allow us to develop new research ideas, support technology deployment with government agencies like CFR and Innotech, and then turn around and train people locally in that area of hydrogen using some of the same traditional manufacturing skill sets and techniques that we've developed, but just with some tailoring, working with some of the trade union, trade schools and others, right, to develop some skills and apprenticeship programs. So what that's really going to do for us now is making sure that both of the industries are actually having jobs, opportunities and new technologies, so one doesn't feel as though the other is advancing without them at the same time. So jobs will always be there and we'll always have new ideas kind of flowing, so then they become a symbiotic partnership relationship across the two different economies, manufacturing and hydrogen. Thank you.
Symbiotic relationship between manufacturing and advanced manufacturing is very critical, I think. James, Bob?
The only thing I was going to add to André, hard act to follow, is when everything now is going by carbon intensity, right? And one thing the battery industry is doing, for example, is they're doing digital stamping of the chain, right? So if you're starting from a base of low carbon intensity, then that digital stamp starts getting attached along the way in the process, right? And I think that's going to be a driver along with price and quality and all that kind of traditional metrics, right, for success. But I think the carbon intensity stamping, if you're a leader in that as well, then it's I think a net benefit.
And the only thing I'll add is that it's the collaborations between industry and academia that we're very encouraged with the research, the development of all of these platforms, because we'll be the enablers, right, as industry, and it's just a staged path forward, right?
So collaboration, talent, and network. So I would like to jump into my next question. So James, you're here representing Hycamite. I know what Hycamite does. I know what methane pyrolysis is. So do you mind explaining to the folks watching, if they don't know what methane pyrolysis is, how does it work, what is the byproduct, and following up with that, how does that open up new opportunities for manufacturers to participate in the hydrogen economy?
Thank you for the question. Hycamite actually call their process methane splitting. A little technicality on the pyrolysis bit. Suffice to say that the history, what attracted me was that the history of the company was based on research that was done in the northern part of Finland, where they mine a lot of cobalt and they have metal refining for the battery and other sectors. And so the objective was really to try to figure out how to make a synthetic graphite from gas. So the focus was not on hydrogen at all. Because the industry was largely metal-based, they were looking at how do we create these carbon structures that could be used in advanced manufacturing and other sectors from gas. And as I mentioned, I knew the chairman of the company, who could see what was happening around the world in terms of hydrogen strategies, and that, well, we shouldn't throw that hydrogen away. That could be the thing that launches this company. So that's essentially what helped launch the company. And so their focus is largely around the carbon side of things, where that carbon can be used as a, I heard this term by the Graphene Council. And graphene is a form of graphite, if you will, without getting too technical in the chemistry. And one thing that the Graphene Council would say is that graphene is increasingly being used to substitute legacy materials in advanced manufacturing because of the properties that it has. And I thought that was just kind of an interesting statement. And they kind of summarized the, graphene's only been discovered for about 15 years now, or thereabouts. And they were saying in 2022, something like 400 patent applications had been submitted for graphene to be used in the energy storage industry, right? So I mean, energy storage is a huge kind of burgeoning industry as we try to go to a lower carbon, kind of energy, and again, this carbon intensity stamping. So getting a little off topic here, but essentially, that's what Hycamite's doing, and we'll be sending out all this carbon as a way to kind of see what the manufacturing hubs are doing in different regions to then set up these hydrogen facilities. So,
Andre, do you have something to add to that?
Yeah, I absolutely do, and I'll definitely pass it over to Bob as well. But even though with pyrolysis we're talking about things like solid carbon, but one of the things that also is important for us in the advanced manufacturing discipline and sector is really around looking at supercritical CO2 as a part of the process as well. So when I think about colleagues at the U of A like Dr. Jing Liu that's looking at developing new materials that will actually support pipelines, for example, to transport supercritical CO2. What Inatech is doing to set up pipe loops for testing and things like that, that actually opens up doors for us as well to really also integrate a bit more flexibility into the manufacturing processes to look at even a broader scope of work in that area. And of course, work with industries. We know that in Alberta, we're building one of the biggest CO2 transport pipelines in this province, right? So, having materials, having the manufacturing capabilities ready to support that immediately is something that I know that universities in the province in partnership with industry are really working on trying to develop as well.
Bob, so you're also the chair of Hydrogen BC. You're playing an advanced role in making the hydrogen corridor happen with fueling station across the Western Canada. So we are seeing world-scale hydrogen projects being advanced in the Edmonton region. So how can local manufacturers start to prepare for a hydrogen-scaled future, especially in mobility and heavy transport?
Networking. That's the biggest thing, right? Is building relationships, building consortiums, establishing networks, and leveraging those networks. So it's not that everybody within any one area of the industry or the government or however that can be, but to be out there and be focused on creating a value proposition. Ultimately, Cariboo has a standpoint where we're focusing today on establishing corridors. So Edmonton to Prince Rupert, Calgary to Vancouver are two corridors where we really see the value of co-combustion or dual fuel capabilities for transportation purposes. But it's the municipalities that have a key focus on the emission reductions to provide a better living type of an environment for their general population in the region. And that's where we have the focus today, in establishing those micro hubs along those corridors where that will establish the fueling necessary to attract transportation service providers and stuff. So ultimately, like we said before, it's the manufacturing capabilities of this region and others that it's already established that can have a opportunity within the hydrogen economy space.
We talked a lot about opportunities and what's going right for the Edmonton region or any region in the world in terms of manufacturing and hydrogen. So let's talk a little bit about the challenges. So what do you see are some of the biggest challenges and even biggest opportunities facing manufacturers looking to enter the hydrogen space in Western Canada as policy, demand, and production evolve over time?
Well, without mentioning the elephant in the room, but political stability, I would say that we have obviously have an election next week, and it seems that we, regardless of who wins, we at least have alignment on the fact that Canada needs to build energy infrastructure, east-west, and I think that is going to be important, and I think that kind of policy direction at a federal level, coordinated, provincially, if we're breaking down provincial barriers, interprovincial barriers, excuse me, I think that is the kind of thing that really could really take off and really have some dramatic impacts,
And I would add public awareness. The hydrogen economy has been talked about for a few years now, but we're engaging with the cities, the municipalities. It's really about what is it, how do you create it, and how is it utilized. So we really need to focus, to the point about the geopolitical uncertainties. There's advancements in the need for infrastructure, but the general public isn't aware of what that infrastructure is. So it's really an awareness campaign that's necessary.
And I'll probably maybe start off with the challenge first and end with the opportunity, so everyone leaves this room smiling a little bit. Big challenge is from the manufacturing space where I am. I'm a thermal spray coater. Take off the suit, get out there, turn on the torch, start blasting powders on samples, and it's very dirty. It's very nasty. It's horrible environment, but we do it because we want to protect parts in this sector. Now, do we know about hydrogen? We kind of don't, right? And as manufacturing experts, we don't understand what hydrogen is really about. Yeah, we know from chemistry, we know from physics and whatnot, but we really truly don't understand this sector. So one of the biggest challenges is actually dialogue across the two sectors in order to enable us to kind of work together to create new technologies, right? So that will be one barrier. The other barrier or challenge that's out there is actually having processes codified to support, for manufacturing to support the sector. So earlier in the conversation, I mentioned that Acuren and other organizations are looking to create ASTM-based B codes that will actually support pressure vessels and what is needed for those pressure vessels to support hydrogen storage and transport. That is just in consultation right now at committee level, right? So we actually need a bit more of those, so we as manufacturers can actually produce parts, surfaces, coatings, and other things that are needed for the hydrogen sector that will actually avoid leakage, hydrogen embrittlement, things like that from a technology perspective, right? In terms of opportunities, I mentioned this before, but I definitely want to reiterate again, diversification of opportunities for both sectors, right? Imagine that you have, say, for example, a thermal spray coating infrastructure here in, say, the industrial park in Edmonton, or you're doing laser cladding, or you're doing, laser powder dep or something like that, right? And you're able to engage with multiple sectors, aerospace, hydrogen, oil and gas. That diversifies the economy. That creates jobs for us in advanced manufacturing, and then it allows us to support a broader cross-section of this local diverse economy within the province of Alberta. So that is the biggest opportunity that I will take away. And the final thing that I'll say about opportunities, the students love it. They love doing different things. It motivates them, it excites them. That allows us to retain people here in the province to continue to build and grow both advanced manufacturing and the hydrogen economy.
James?
The other thing I was going to say to your earlier point is that I remember like 25 years ago, Ballard Power Systems made a big splash. They developed this fuel cell, and the stock price went crazy, and everybody thought the world was going to change, and something exciting things were going to happen. And then all of a sudden, crickets, right? And then, eventually, electric vehicles started to take over, and everybody was like, yeah, hydrogen is always tomorrow, and all the rest of it. And then a couple of years ago, came to the first hydrogen convention, and CPKC was presenting on retrofitting a diesel locomotive with a Ballard hydrogen fuel cell. And what a lot of people didn't realize was that, you can't just plunk a fuel cell into a locomotive train without the whole supply chain, value chain, and all the rest of it, right? So for them to get to that point and do that spoke to that the rest of that chain is there or will be there. And I think that example speaks volumes, right? Because it's 25 years ago that they made the big splash, and now you've got CPKC. I think they've outfitted a half a dozen trains, right? And if that kind of momentum can carry, then that starts to have spillover effects, and then just kind of multiplies from there.
Sure. One thing I may add is the supply chain. When we're talking about opportunities and challenges. One thing is supply chain. And Edmonton Global, we have an initiative. It's supply chain mapping initiative. We are mapping out all the companies in the hydrogen spaces in Western Canada. So you folks watching from home and in our audience will see a QR code on the screen. You can scan that and join the supply chain mapping initiative if you would like. So we have, so I have time for one more question before we head into our Q&A. So I want you guys to answer this in one sentence. So in 20 years, how do you envision the hydrogen manufacturing space, both regionally and globally? André, do you want to go first?
Yeah. Diverse jobs in the province. Yeah.
Perfect.
In 20 years.
And I'll say exponential growth. We're in that Canadian hockey stick curve, I would say at the time. We're in the shaft, the blade's coming. But it's enabling and creating or delivering the chicken and the egg, right? So the supply with the market and really looking, in how we advance the enabling technology to bring that market into the world.
Thank you, Bob. James?
Well, I'm from the East Coast, so asking somebody from the East Coast to come up with a one-sentence answer is next to impossible. Suffice to say that, I think it's important that the country and the regions maintain this, a focus, right? And not get lost in the noise, right? So I think if the country and the regions can maintain the focus, then you could have like exponential growth in that area.
Thank you all. Now we are heading into our Q&A. So we have some mic runners around the room. So
hello, my name is Giuseppe. I'm being in the hydrogen business, believe it or not, 20 years. I came to Canada. I was attracted by the company called Global Thermoelectric. I was attracted as an engineer when I saw in the news looking for a power electronic engineer. They were looking for a power electronic engineer to develop the solid oxide fuel cell in Calgary. It was like a dream come true. I want to be there, and I applied for a job. I got a job, but the whole thing changed. The company was taken over by an American company, and they are not doing that well now. Anyway, my question is, you see all the benefit of hydrogen. A few weeks ago, we have a World Guinness record for a truck. The truck with the 170 kilos of hydrogen, 170 kilos of hydrogen, complete a circuit of 1,800 kilometers. 170 kilos of hydrogen that was able to complete a journey of 1,800 kilometers with a fuel cell from a company in Toronto. Hydrogening now is part of Cummins.
sorry, we have 1 minute with us, so if you could
the question
make
is
the question short.
why we are doing bad in the hydrogen business that we don't convince the customer, because a Tesla car, the Model 3, the battery weighs almost 600 kilos, and only you can do 300 miles, 300 kilometers, I'm not sure. So what we are doing wrong that we don't convince the customer of the benefit of the hydrogen instead of battery power electric car. That is my question.
Well, I think it's interesting, and thank you for the question, because it's interesting because I actually visited that Hydrogenics facility years ago before they were bought by Cummins, and at the time, there was a lot of buzz about it because the research came out of the University of Toronto and so on and so forth, right? And that's a typical example of homegrown technology that was developed that was subsequently bought because it was deemed to be unprofitable, right? And I think, that your story needs to be told because we can't be afraid of failure, right? Like, I've blazed a trail in some cases, and ran up against my wife would tell me, how far of the rock are you going to push up the hill today, so it's one of those things, right, where you just have to not be afraid of failure and maybe take failure and kind of build on it, right? And so that's all I can say.
Thank you, James. Thank you for your question. We are coming to the end of the panel. I know you guys have more questions. Our panelists will be around to answer your questions. So thank you for joining us for this Manufacturing for Hydrogen session. The next session starts in 15 minutes. That is the future in focus, tomorrow's leaders in global hydrogen economy. Thank you, everyone.